Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the SWAS NBA Friday. We got 7 games on the board. Didn't make a video yesterday, so to recap the last 2 days, Wednesday night was a good one. 5-2 that night, so yeah, things have been going well. I'm recording this before the action on Thursday night's over. I lost the Penn State bet, so I'm 0-1 at the time of recording this, so hopefully by the time you're watching this, I picked up a couple wins. NBA Friday, 7 games on the board. Let's do it.
I mean, is Cooper Rush worth 2.5 points?
I would hope Quinn Ewers put up a decent stat line against Arizona State. If he didn't, we have a real problem.
You can say the same thing about Creighton. Okay, they had the one good game against Kansas at home.
When Toast talks about the kicking market, it's like some earth is flat shit. Andy, true or false, this is going to be a dog walking.
Dog walking. This is my dog walking of the day. I think it's going to be very ugly. Dog walking. I think this is going to be ugly.
Hey, get the sauce. First up, we got an absolute banger here. Clippers on the road at Charlotte. The Hornets are catching 14. I even see a bunch of 14.5s open. So yeah, Clippers are huge home dogs here. Total sitting at 214, 213.5, somewhere in there. Score projection for this one, 110.4, 108.9. Obviously, the model does not take into consideration injuries. On the last 10 games, the Clippers are first in defensive rating, 14th offensively, 25th in strength of schedule, though. So the Clippers have been a little fortunate in their recent schedule. That being said, the Hornets have played an even weaker schedule. They're 28th in the last 10 games, 7th defensively, so the Hornets have been playing some defense as well, 20th. Offensive. Injuries on the Clippers side, not a problem here. Looks like we're going to see the Clippers pretty much at full strength. They do have some injuries too. Chris Dunn, PJ Tucker, but nothing new. As far as the main pieces, the Clippers are going to be at full strength here. On the Hornets side, that is not the case. No LaMelo Ball. No Brandon Miller, obviously. No Mark Williams. He's been ruled out. No Cody Martin. Looks like they're going to get Josh Green back, though. So they're not quite as injured as they were in the Brooklyn game, but by no means are the Hornets healthy. They're anything but healthy. So, yeah, this matchup is pretty simple. I mean, we're talking about the Clippers with Kawhi Leonard on the floor, who have been, when Kawhi Leonard's out there, they've been one of the strongest teams in the NBA. They're 8-2 against the spread when Kawhi plays, 7-3 straight up. I mean, look at their defensive rating when Kawhi plays. 103.6, elite defensive team when Kawhi Leonard's on the floor. Their offensive rating is over 116 as well. So when Kawhi plays, they're an elite defensive team and a damn good offensive team as well. One of the best teams in the NBA, honestly, when Kawhi Leonard is on the floor. And they're matched up against the Hornets without LaMelo Ball, who, straight up, I was just talking about this when I bet the Nets the other night. This team cannot score points without LaMelo Ball. Now, the fact that they're going to have Josh Green back, that's something. But still, the 13 games without LaMelo Ball, they got a 102 offensive rating, a 102. That would be the worst in the NBA by far. This team just cannot score points without LaMelo Ball. Look at the fast break numbers without LaMelo Ball. Down under 12%. They're not getting out and running. And when they do, they're not efficient. This offense is terrible without LaMelo Ball on the floor. Now, it's important to point out that they haven't been a complete blind fade without LaMelo Ball because they do play some defense without him. They're 6-7 against the spread in their 13 games without LaMelo Ball. 1-12 straight up. So they're not winning a lot of games, but they do cover the number here and there because, like I said, the defense is pretty much the same with or without LaMelo. In fact, they have been playing some good defense here. So I'm not going to lay the 14, but I don't know where the points are coming. With no LaMelo Ball and with Kawhi Leonard on the floor, we're looking at arguably the best defense in the NBA against arguably the worst offense in the NBA. So I just don't know where the points are coming from here for Charlotte. Not to mention we should see a relatively slow-paced game. So I don't see how Charlotte gets to triple digits here. Give me the Hornets team total under 100.5, 99.5. Whatever you can get should be good. Next game. Dallas on the road in Detroit. The Pistons are catching 1 or 1.5, depending on your sportsbook. Total sitting at 231, 231.5, somewhere in there. Score prediction 113.6 to 113.2. In the last 10 games, the Mavericks are 16th offensively, 23rd defensively, 16th in strength of schedule in that span. The Pistons are actually 4th in strength of schedule in the last 10, so they've been playing a tough schedule. They're 10th defensively, which is interesting. The Pistons have been playing some defense pretty much since Jaden Ivey got hurt and guys like Thompson, guys like Tobias Harris started seeing more minutes. The Pistons' defense has improved. The offense, however, not so much. In the last 10 games, they're 23rd offensively. So the Pistons have been struggling to score. As far as the injury reports go, pretty much nothing new on either side here. Still no Luka Doncic for Dallas. Still no Derek Lively for Dallas. On the Detroit side, still no Jaden Ivey. So pretty much the same lineup we've seen for both these teams are going to be out there in this one. So what do we think about this matchup? Well, the Dallas defense hasn't looked all that great. You can see here in their last 14 games, defensive rating above 115, not forcing any turnovers. Definitely a little bit of a drop-off from the 13 games before that. So I don't know how much I trust this Dallas defense right now without Lively out there protecting the rim, and specifically against the fast break, which is interesting because the Pistons do get out in transition. But you can see in the last 14 games, I mean, look at that in comparison to the 13 games previous to that. Dallas has been struggling defensively in transition here. So you look at the Pistons offensive numbers on the year, and this should be a good matchup for Detroit on paper, right? I mean, they're 5th in the NBA in transition frequency, 8th in points per game in transition. You look at the Mavericks full season numbers, they've been playing great defense in transition, but we just looked, they've been struggling against the fast break recently, the last 14 games or whatever we just pointed out. So this should be a good matchup for the Pistons offensively. The problem is, I mean, the Pistons are struggling to score points. In the last 7 games, their offensive rating is down below a 108. It was 115.1 in the 8 games before that. So, I mean, this Pistons offense, I don't know how much I trust it right now, even though the Dallas defense has been struggling as of late and they've been struggling in transition. Should be a great matchup for them. So I just don't know if I could put my money on the Pistons offense. And you can see here the lack of scoring for Detroit is showing in the results. In the last 7 games, when the offensive rating is down, 2-5 against the spread, 2-5 straight up. When they were scoring in the 8 games before that, they were 5-3 against the spread, 7-1 straight up. So this Pistons offense is just definitely trending in the direction here. Maybe they're missing Jaden Ivey. I don't know. I just know what the numbers say, and the numbers say Detroit is not scoring. They have played a bit of a strong schedule, as we pointed out, so maybe we cut them a little bit of a slack. But speaking of their schedule, we have to mention that they're just returning from a 5-game, 9-day road trip. This is their first game back. Typically, that's a flat spot. Typically, that's a fade spot. So if you're asking my opinion, I think we can trust this Dallas defense, even though it hasn't looked all that great. I don't like the spot for the Pistons offense, and I don't like the way they've been playing. Now, on the other side of the ball, like I said before, the Pistons have been playing some defense, and specifically, they've been protecting the paint. In their last 10 games against a strong schedule, they're 13th in defensive efficiency at the rim, 5th in frequency, so they're not letting their opponents get to the basket. That's what Dallas is trying to do. They take a lot of shots on the interior, in the paint, at the basket. So I actually trust the Pistons defense here, which is why when it comes to placing a bet, I'm kind of torn here. I either want to take the Pistons team total under 115.5 or Dallas money line at -112, -115, whatever you can get it. I'm probably going to place one of those bets. I haven't placed either as of right now. It'll be Pistons team total under or Mavs money line next game. Denver on the road in Philadelphia. The red hot Philadelphia 76ers. Sixers catching mostly 8.5. Total sitting at 231.5 across the board. Score projection here. Nuggets 112.4. Sixers 109.1. Last 10 games, I mean, look at the last 5 games. We got a couple of offenses here. In the last 5 games, the Nuggets are 5th in offensive efficiency. Sixers are 7th. Sixers have done it against a strong schedule, too. They're 2nd in strength of schedule in the last 10, 3rd in the last 5. So both these teams have been scoring recently. Neither are playing any defense. As far as injuries go, nothing new on either side. The Nuggets should be at full strength for this one. No injury designations to the main pieces for Denver. And on the Philadelphia side, the same thing we've seen the last couple of games. No Paul George, no Caleb Martin, no Joel Embiid, no Andre Drummond. But that's not new. Like I said, those same pieces have been missing, I think, 2 games now. So let's get into this matchup, and we'll start by taking a look at the Nuggets road trip, which has been, I mean, it's been a nightmare for the Nuggets. They were 8-1 against the spread, 8-1 straight up heading into this road trip. They've lost 3 in a row, failed to cover in all 3. 0-3 straight up, 0-3 against the spread on this road trip so far for the Nuggets. And if you look at the efficiency numbers in those last 3 games, I mean, the defense has fallen off a cliff. I mean, offense has also fallen off a cliff. Defense is down 16 points per 100%. I mean, that's crazy. A 126 defensive rating in their last 3 games, which is the 3-game road trip. Offense is down to a 111 as well, which is equally concerning. So the offense has been significantly worse. The defense has been significantly worse in these last 3 games. I have some good news for the Nuggets on the offensive side of the ball, though. I have the cure to your illness. The Philadelphia 76ers defense, specifically their defense at the basket, it's awful. They're 29th in defensive efficiency at the rim in the last 10 games, 27th in frequency. So they cannot keep their opponents from getting to the basket, and when they get to the basket, they cannot keep their opponents from scoring at the basket. The reason that's so significant, nobody takes more shots at the rim than the Denver Nuggets. They're 1st in frequency, 6th in efficiency. So this should be an all-you-can-eat buffet for the Denver Nuggets at the basket here. But before you go rushing to lay the 8.5 points with Denver here, we have to acknowledge that the Sixers are scoring points. I mean, in their last 4 games, they have an offensive rating over 120 compared to a 111 in the 12 games before that. Philadelphia's offense is picking up. They're also picking up the pace, over 99 in the last 4 games. So against a fast-paced team like the Nuggets, we should see a fast-paced game. And the way the Nuggets defense has looked, we should see a lot of scoring here. I mean, the Sixers have been covered. They're 4-0 against the spread, 4-0 straight up in the last 4 games. So I'm not jumping at the opportunity to lay 8.5 points on the road at Philadelphia against this team, but I will take the over. 231.5. Like I said, I think we should see a fast-paced game. Both offenses are, I mean, Denver hasn't really been scoring the last few games, but against Philadelphia, offense should get back on track. Philadelphia can't seem to stop scoring right now against a Nuggets defense that's looked terrible. We should see a fast pace. We should see a lot of points. Over. Next game. Chicago on the road in Toronto. The Raps are laying 3 or 3.5, depending on your sportsbook. Total sitting at 231.5, pretty much across the board. Score projection here, 119.9 for the Raps, 114.8 for the Bulls. In the last 10 games, the Bulls are not looking good, man. They're 26th offensively, 22nd defensively, and that's against the 24th strongest schedule. So the Bulls have looked like ass against an ass schedule recently. Meanwhile, this Toronto Raptors defense, we've been talking about it. If you've been watching this channel, you already know what is going on with this Toronto Raptors defense. They've looked like the best defense in the NBA. They're actually first in defensive rating in the last 5 games, 4th in the last 10 games. Now, we can look at the strength of schedule, 20th in the last 10 games, 30th in the last 5 games. So, okay, they've played a bit of an easy schedule, but I mean, that continues. The Bulls are terrible right now. Injuries on the Chicago side, we still have no Zach LaVine. He is not going to return for this one. Other than that, Bulls should be good to go here. On the Toronto side, we definitely have some question marks. Kelly Olynyk listed as questionable. Grady Dick is listed as questionable. And they might be getting Emmanuel Quickley back. He's listed as questionable. He's been out for the last, I don't know, probably like 8 to 10 games. So let's get into this matchup, and we'll start with the red-hot Raptors defense. A 103 defensive rating in the last 8 games is truly crazy. That would be the best in the NBA. If you told me there would be an 8-game stretch this season where the Toronto Raptors were playing consistent, excellent defense, the best defense in the NBA, I would have said you were absolutely nuts. But here we are. Opponent effective field goal percentage under 50%. The Raps are clamping right now, and the results reflect it. They're 7-1 against the spread, 7-1 straight up in those last 8 games. So the Raptors are clamping on defense. They're winning games. They're covering numbers, and they're matched up against a Chicago offense that's really struggling without Zach LaVine. In the 6 games without LaVine on the floor, they have an offensive rating under 108. So right off the bat, it's looking pretty good for Toronto here. I mean, on one side, you got a team red hot, 7-1 in their last 8, playing better defense than any team in the NBA, matched up against a team missing their best offensive player, that struggling to score points, 1-4-1 against the spread in their last 6, 2-4 straight up. Looking like a pretty solid start here for Toronto. Not to mention on the offensive side of the ball, we know the Raps love to attack the basket. They're 9th in frequency, 7th in efficiency in their last 10 games. Plays into the weakness of this Bulls well, every aspect of the Bulls defense is the weakness. They're actually pretty strong against the 3-point shot, but they've struggled to protect the basket all year. One of the worst rim protecting defenses in the NBA this season. So it's actually a favorable matchup for the Raps offense as well. So everything points to a Raps cover. Everything points to a Bulls team total under. Not to mention this game's in Toronto, where the Raps have been insanely profitable, 16-7 against the spread at home this year, compared to 12-10-1 against the spread on the road. And the Bulls have been a terrible bet on the road, 2-7 against the spread in their last 9 road games, 1-5 against the spread in their last 6 on the road. I mean, how do we not bet Toronto here? Well, here's why I haven't pulled the trigger yet. Emmanuel Quickley returning to the lineup concerns me a little bit. I mean, we saw the Raptors defense kind of come together after he got hurt, and I'm not saying him getting hurt is the reason for that, but he's a guy that holds the ball in his hands a lot. He's been terrible shooting the basketball this year. I don't know what him returning to the lineup does. I hope it doesn't mess up the juju, and I don't know if I sound crazy saying this, but I'm a little worried that the Raptors are going to turn back into a pumpkin here, getting Quickley back on the floor. I mean, I wouldn't mess up with the rotation right now if I'm Toronto. So if Quickley is ruled out, I will hit the Raptors. I will hit Bulls team total under. If Quickley plays, I don't know what I'm going to do, honestly. So it's going to be Raptors or pass, Bulls team total under or pass. I'll let you know on the live show what I ended up doing. Next game. Boston on the road in New Orleans. The Pelicans are catching 10.5 or 11, depending on your sports book. Total sitting at 230.5, 231, somewhere in there. Score projection for this one, 111.9, 109.2. Last 10 games, Boston is 13th offensively, 6th defensively, 18th in strength of schedule. The Pelicans are actually 11th offensively in the last 10 games, 27th defensively, but 29th in strength of schedule. So Boston has played a little bit of a stronger schedule as of late. I'm actually going to skip this one for now. I don't really have a feel for either of these teams. I thought the Pelicans were going to beat the Mavs the other night. They did cover. So if I bet New Orleans, I was leaning New Orleans, they would have covered. But I actually thought they were going to win that game. And Dallas was leading most of the second half. So I really don't know. We'll talk about it on the live show. I don't really feel very strongly about this game. Next, Milwaukee on the road in San Antonio. The Spurs are catching 3. I actually see a 3.5 here now. For the most part, it's 3, though. Total sitting at 230.5 or 231. Projected score for this one, 113.9 for Milwaukee, 113.2 for the Spurs. Last 10 games, the Bucks offensively are 4th. Bucks have not had problems scoring points as of late. They're 14th defensively, 22nd in strength of schedule. Spurs are actually 5th in strength of schedule, but look at the defensive rating, and that's pretty much what we're going to talk about here. The Spurs defense, they're dead last in the last 10 games, 21st offensively. Couple injury question marks on the Milwaukee side. AJ Green is listed as questionable, so is Bobby Portis. So a couple question marks on the Bucks side. No injury designations as far as the main pieces go for San Antonio. We should see the Spurs at full strength for this one. All right, so like I said, we're going to talk about the Spurs defense, and this is why I can't place a bet on this game right now. If you remember the other day, I was talking about this. Jeremy Sohan got hurt. We saw the Spurs defense completely fall off, right? In the 5 games he missed, they had a defensive rating over 123. Effective field goal percentage for their opponents almost up at 60%. So this Spurs defense that was looking great for most of the season, Jeremy Sohan goes down and they look like absolute trash. Then Jeremy Sohan comes back. They play in France against the Pacers. They beat the brakes off them, 140-110. Spurs defense plays well in the game, and it's like, okay, here comes the Spurs defense. Remember, for most of the season, they were a top 10 defense. Jeremy Sohan comes back, and the first game they win by 30 points. So at that point, we're thinking, okay, Sohan's back. The Spurs defense is going to round it to form. But how did they follow that game up? Well, with 2 terrible defensive performances in their last 2 games. Granted, it was against the Pacers and the Clippers with Kawhi, so 2 very dangerous teams, 2 good offensive teams, but still a defensive rating of 130. That would be the worst in the NBA by far. So after that great game when Jeremy Sohan comes back against the Pacers in France, they followed it up with back-to-back terrible defensive performances. So what can we expect from the Spurs on the defensive side of the ball? Because if you go by their last 10 games, you got the 5 games without Sohan, you got the 1 great game, and then you got 2 terrible games. I mean, it's looking pretty bad. We just looked at it in the last 10 games. They've been the worst defense in the NBA. It puts us in a tough position as far as making a prediction, because if you ask me personally, now that they're healthy, now that Jeremy Sohan is back, I do expect the Spurs defense to start playing well again, but how can we put our money on it based on what we've seen in the last couple games? Not to mention they're playing Milwaukee. That offense has been on fire. In their last 12 games, they got an offensive rating over 120. I mean, they've been covering, they've been winning games, mostly on the back of their offense. Milwaukee's playing great offensively. So I just feel like the variance on that side of the ball is so wide. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bucks put up 140 points here. I also wouldn't be surprised if the Spurs defense finally shows up and plays well. So, I mean, I just can't make a prediction in this game. I feel like the variance on that side of the ball is just crazy wide. So it's going to be a pass for me. I'd probably lean towards the Bucks team total over, but going to be a pass. Phoenix on the road in Golden State. The Warriors are laying 1 or 1.5, depending on your sports book. Total sitting at looking like mostly 224.5. Let's take a look at the matchup overview here. Projected score 111.3 for Golden State, 105.9 for the Suns. In the last 10 games, the Suns are 12th offensively, 15th defensively against the 30th strength of schedule, which would explain the score projection. Golden State 17th, 25th against the 21st strongest schedule. So let's talk injuries, and nobody on the injury report for the Suns. It looks like Phoenix should be at full strength for this one. On the Golden State side, it looks like we're still missing the same 2 pieces here. No Kuminga, no Draymond Green. Well, actually, Draymond Green is listed as doubtful, so most likely no Kuminga, no Draymond Green. That's not not new. Draymond's been out for, I believe, 9 games now. All right, so let's get into this one. And the first thing I wanted to take a look at was the rebounding battle. Because one thing you got to give Golden State, they've rebounded the ball really well. Pretty much this entire season, but especially as of late. In the last 10 games, they're 7th in defensive rebounding rate, 6th in offensive rebounding rate. If you remember, that's why I said I was leaning towards Golden State plus 10 against Oklahoma City. They ended up winning that game. They've been rebounding the ball well. This is against the Phoenix Suns, who in the last 10 games are 28th and 23rd in rebounding rate. So right off the bat, we're looking at the home team who's probably going to win the rebounding battle here. That being said, we do have to take note that Phoenix has been a better rebounding team since acquiring Nick Richards. Not that I'd say they've been a good rebounding team, but they've been better. In the 13 games before acquiring Nick Richards, they had a 67.27% defensive rebounding rate. Since acquiring Nick Richards, it's been 6 games, so still a super small sample size here, but their defensive rebounding rate is up close to 73%. So Phoenix has definitely been a better rebounding team since acquiring Nick Richards, but still, against this Golden State team that's been top 10 in both offensive and defensive rebounding rate for most of the year, you got to think the Warriors are going to win the rebounding battle here. And this is a Golden State team that seems to be turning it around a little bit. Now, we're just talking about 4 games here, but in their last 4 games, they're 3-1 straight up, 3-1 against the spread. So this Golden State team hasn't looked quite as bad recently. What concerns me most about betting Golden State here is, can we trust them to make stops? Because this Phoenix offense has been on another one. If you remember, I was just talking about this. The Suns' offensive numbers in the last 10 games or so, the last 11 games in this graphic, over 117 offensive rating. And if you remember the other day when they were playing Minnesota, I was criticizing the strength of schedule. They had played a bunch of games against a bunch of really bad defenses. Well, they kind of shut me up. In their last 2 games, they scored on the Clippers and they scored on Minnesota. That's 2 top 5 defenses there. So this Suns offense, when they're healthy, they're going to score on anybody. And although Golden State has been playing some better basketball as of late, it's not really on the defensive side of the ball. In fact, since the Draymond Green injury, Golden State's got a defensive rating over 117. That's in the 9 games since Draymond Green's been out. So we've seen the defense kind of drop off for Golden State since missing Draymond Green. So I can't count on Golden State to make stops in this game. This Suns offense looks too good. If they're going to be healthy, they're going to score points on this Warriors defense. But before you go and bet Phoenix, we got to look at the matchup on the other side, because we just mentioned how the Warriors defense has fallen off since missing Draymond Green for the last 9 games. Well, the offense has done the exact opposite. In the 9 games before Draymond Green got injured, offensive rating at 108. In the 9 games since Draymond Green has got hurt. Now, he did play in one of them. He came back for 1 game, so he's only missed 8 of the last 9. But look at the offensive rating in the last 9 games, mostly without Draymond Green, over 115. So although the Warriors' defense has fallen off since the Draymond Green injury, the offense has actually been pretty good for Golden State. And it's not like this is a Suns defense that scares us. They are 15th in defensive efficiency in the last 10 games. They're 30th in strength of schedule. So they have been playing some decent defense, but they've seen some really weak competition. So I think Golden State, especially with Steph back out there, I think Golden State's going to score points right back. So I'm leaning towards an over here. What worries me a little bit is the pace. In the last 10 games, the Suns are 18th in pace. Golden State is 25th. So we should see a slower paced basketball game, but I'm not anticipating we're going to see many stops here. So I still may end up betting this over. I haven't bet it yet. But it'll be over or pass in this one. Live show, 4 p.m. Eastern time. We'll go through the entire slate. I got Chris and Ski coming on. Toast will come on. We'll talk about some college basketball. If you're able to make it, we'd love to see you in the comments. If you want to see all my open bets, head over to KyleKirms.com and click on open bets. Then click on sauce. You'll see all mine as well as everyone else on the staff there. Let's have ourselves a great Friday night. Hit me up in the Discord if you need me. Please remember to bet responsibly. Later.